Ladies and gentlemen, this is Running Out the Clock, the podcast that you keep wanting, where you keep wanting us to vilify one of the members of the podcast, and I'm not going to do it. So stop asking.
It's okay. You can vilify me. I probably deserve it.
I'm Joseph Craven. We got Chandler Rowland. We got Keith Harkins. Roe Hunter unable to join us in this recording session. And as we are doing this, we are all currently in a fantasy football draft. So that in the league that Roe won last week. So good for him, not able to make it. But gentlemen, good to see all of you here. It is my turn to pick. And I feel pretty confident that I should go with Devontae Adams, the Green Bay wide receiver, because I feel like he would get targeted a tremendous amount.
Joke's on you because targeting is illegal.
Yep.
Dang.
Got him.
Man, I
Dang.
completely misunderstood things.
Got him.
However, I do kind of want to go with Tyreek Hill because I really like Tyreek Hill as a player. I don't know if he works in this offense with a new quarterback or not, but I'm going to, you know what? I think I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go Tyreek Hill just because I like him.
Going off the board.
Going off the board. All right.
Good choice there.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, I got a running back already. I need wide receivers. It'll work out. All right, here we are. Week 1 is now week done in college football.
Good joke, bro. Way to start the podcast off.
I wrote that joke when I was making the outline.
Hot fire.
I laughed way too hard, but only on the inside. Because I can't show weakness.
It's still true, though. Week 1 is over.
We can't show weakness. All right. We have to start this podcast off the same way we always start the podcast off, and that's by talk about the Noles. And gentlemen, the Noles were bad, huh?
That was something to talk about.
That was terrible. That was
all right. Moving on.
I was shocked.
Pretty rough.
Moving on, then. That's talking about the Noles. Thank you for listening to that segment. I want to ask you both to give. We talked about leading into the season the new coaches, the new head coaches in the SEC. We have a few in particular. You got Jeremy Pruitt, you got Chad Morris, you've got Joe Moorhead, and you've got Dan Mullen. As far as the actual new guys, I'm not overlooking anybody, right?
I wasn't here for the new coaching discussion. Are we counting Matt Luke's interim year as his first year, or is this his first year?
We're not really including Matt Luke.
Okay.
In this one. Keith, we didn't discuss that. I don't believe in the first time we went around it, but I don't know. I could be wrong there.
We did. I think so.
We did? We did call Matt Luke? Whatever.
Yeah.
Well, let's include Matt Luke. Out of those 5, those are the 5 guys. We'll go ahead and include him in there as well. Those are the 5 guys. Chandler, who do you think, as far as a coach, made the strongest debut this weekend?
I'm going to say, it's the guy whose team just looked the most prepared, and they came out there and they fought hard for 60 minutes, and they had exceptional quarterback play. I'm, of course, talking about Jeremy Pruitt and the Tennessee Volunteers. Just kidding. No, I'm not. I'm going to be a bit of a homer on this one, but Matt Luke answered a lot of my questions. It's one game. Texas Tech is not good. I mean, Texas Tech is potentially looking at 1-11 this year. I think they're that bad. But watching Ole Miss play on Saturday, I saw a poised team. I saw a calm team that never really got rattled. I saw a team that didn't commit a lot of kind of offensive, stupid penalties that kind of reflect not really being prepared. And so, I got to say, again, it's one game against an average opponent at best, but there were times
better opponents that any of the SEC teams were going up against.
Which is a little sad.
Well, it's week 1. It's opening.
It's week 1. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to say Matt Luke, and I think even looking at the defense, it wasn't great, but it definitely looked like it had a little bit more. It looked like it had a little bit more identity, and they kind of knew what they were doing. Yeah, and the team as a whole just never seemed to get rattled because it was like every time they would throw a punch, Texas Tech would counter, and then all of a sudden all of a sudden they just stayed calm, and then
they outlasted Texas Tech.
And the biggest thing to me was right there at the end of the game. There was about 9 minutes left. Ole Miss was up 17, and they get the ball back. And one of the big questions for Ole Miss, and this has kind of been the big question for the last 5 years with Ole Miss, was, can they play with the lead? Can they run a 4-minute offense? And they got the ball with about 9.5 minutes left, and kicked the field goal, I think, with under 4 left. And that was huge to be able to kind of salt away that game. They were helped by a stupid penalty from Tech, but I think all in all, I was really, really impressed with Ole Miss on Saturday.
Matt Luke gets your vote. Keith, out of the new coaches, who wins your love and appreciation, undying respect? I'm sorry, did I not mention those are the stakes for picking this?
Well, I've never had any of those and plan on never having any of those. So the burden's off of me at all times. I think 3 of the new coaches did well in their debuts. So it's kind of hard to pick just one. I do agree with Chandler in that Ole Miss looked, I think, sharper on both sides of the ball than I thought they would look. In a first game against an opponent that a lot of people thought were going to hang right there with them. And they kind of did for most of the game until it got out of hand late. But I think that Dan Mullen obviously showed that Felipe Franks has made a lot of progress since the end of last year. He had a really good half, which is all he played for some reason, going 16-24 for 220 yards and 5 touchdowns. Which, by the way,
clearly he didn't have a good enough half, or otherwise he would have been in there the whole game.
It's wild. Apparently he's the first Florida quarterback to have a 5 touchdown game since Chris Leak back in 2004.
Huh.
Like, those 2 years where that Tebow offense was just, slinging and running. Mm-hmm. Apparently he never got 5 touchdowns. So, or passing at least. Right. But I think the one that answered the most questions for me is going to be Jimbo out at A&M. They quietly handled their business. It looked kind of bad early. They had some trouble on the offensive line, but as the game went on, they executed better, made adjustments, and looked a lot better than I thought they would.
Solid. All right, so we've got one for Matt Luke, and we've got one for – who did you actually pick, Keith? Did you
Jimbo.
go with Jimbo? Okay. You gave props to some others. I wasn't sure which one was your main one. I'm gonna say the one I thought had the strongest debut was Chad Morris at Arkansas. I get that they aren't playing anyone like a real opponent, but Morris had very little to work with going into this season. Like very little to work with at Arkansas. And he's implementing a more detailed spread offense attack that takes a little bit to get settled in and to adjust. So anytime that you come in as a head coach, even if you're playing against, Eastern Illinois Panthers, whoever they may be, and you're able to score 55 points and you've got a quarterback who comes out and goes 12 of 17 with 3 touchdowns, and then another quarterback that comes out and goes 9 of 12 for 92 yards and a touchdown. You got efficient passing. It's a good thing. It's when you're working with basically nothing, it's a good thing to come out there and say, hey, all right, here's where we're already ahead of where we probably should be, at least in terms of understanding the offense well enough to run it. And if you stick with me, then we're going to build something off of this. So I think that because he had less to work with, he gets my vote for the one who had the best debut on this weekend.
And hey, just talking about Arkansas real quick, when you look at, they go to Colorado State next week, and you thought, hey, that might be a loss, but the first 2 weeks Colorado State has looked rough. So maybe in general that's a better outlook for the Razorbacks than we thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Who knows what will happen for him? I still don't think it'll be, a good year, but could be a little bit better. He could be a guy who's pushing them a little bit farther ahead than we thought they would be at this point in the year.
Does Arkansas start the year 2-0?
What? Not something we ever assumed we would ask on this podcast. I love it. All right, another thing we want to do on these episodes early on is going over and picking someone that we think deserves credit. Whether it's a particular player or maybe a particular side of the ball or whatever, that we think deserves credit that probably will not get credit. For example, a lot of times people go into what always bothers me is people who look at an upset and they're just like, oh my gosh, the favored team clearly blew it. And they don't give enough credit to the team that actually won, that pulled off the upset. So that's what I'm thinking right here. Who deserves some credit in your eyes that maybe won't get it, Chandler?
He wasn't. He's okay. He's kind of the star of the Ole Miss offense, but AJ Brown did not have an AJ Brown kind of game that you would think that he would have. Mm-hmm. He still had close to 100 yards. He still had a touchdown, but watching him play, you saw a lot of the little things that he did. There was a screen. There were several plays where the commentators kind of highlighted him throwing some pretty nasty blocks. But I'm going to stick with Ole Miss, and I'm going to say Braylon Sanders, wide receiver. He's kind of the number 4 wide receiver in that offense. He kind of came on strong at the end of last season when Van Jefferson was out and Trey Nixon was not playing. He had some big catches to extend some drives and with the Ole Miss receivers, I think a lot that you're looking for with those guys, especially the younger guys like Sanders and Elijah Moore and some of those guys, you're really looking to see who can kind of be the leaders on the offense next year. And I think that he went a long way to kind of make a statement for that. So I'll say Braylon Sanders.
All right. And I do want to, I didn't really mention this, but this is not necessarily something that we can have to keep SEC specific if we wanted to stretch it out. Because I got a guy in mind who's not an SEC player. So I didn't mention that earlier. That's for both you and the listeners. Keith, do you have someone that deserves
if that's the case, I'll say that whoever the guy that starts quarterback for BYU, and he's 40 by now, went to Arizona, actually stayed up. This was the first college football Saturday that I didn't have to work the next Sunday morning in a long time. And so I was like, I'm going to do some Pac-12 after dark. And I think it's Tanner Mangum. And he seriously is he's 26. They said he's older than every rookie NFL quarterback by 5 years. But they went in there to Arizona and played calm and collected and won a game that I don't think a lot of people expected they would win.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there. That's a solid pick. Keith, who you got?
Kind of want to go with a coach, not a player.
It's impermissible. No, it's targeting. That's a 15-yard penalty, and you're ejected.
Oh,
sorry, Keith.
All right, see you guys. I'm going to mute myself.
Who you got?
Maybe this isn't the right place for this, but I just want to give a shout out to Ed Orgeron for coming in and showing everybody that he's for real. Beating the
greatest coach of all time,
number 8 team in the entire nation. Playing lights out defense. No,
they did play lights out defense.
Mm-hmm.
They did really do that.
So one of the things that I was most surprised about this weekend, and this guy is my pick, is true freshman Florida running back Dameon Pierce. I was not expecting him to get in the game really at all. Just because Florida has such a deep backfield, I was honestly expecting him to just kind of maybe play a few reps here and there, and then get that red shirt by game 4. But he played a good chunk of the second half and was Florida's leading rusher throughout the whole game, while playing significantly less playing time than everybody else. He had 9 carries for 73 yards. So basically a first down per touch. He had a couple of big gains, and was just a lot of fun to watch. He's super short, and he can out squat everybody on the team, offensive line, defensive line included. I think they said that he walked in, put 600 pounds on, and just hit it, and everybody lost their mind. So he's a true freshman, like an 18-year-old like man child just walked in and just hit 600 pounds.
It's just nasty.
And it shows in the field because his first carry was like a 12-yard run. He gets the handoff and just blindly runs into the offensive line and bounces off of like 4 people and just scoots for 12. So while I think a lot of the focus of this game is going to eventually be on, the progressions of Felipe Franks, Dan Mullen's impact on the offense, and how Florida's defense looked, given they've suspended like 6 guys. But
right.
He was a really pleasant surprise for me.
It always comes back to me as soon as it's my turn to pick in this stupid fantasy football draft. So I'm like, why do I have to start talking now?
I hate fantasy football.
As I'm over here, I love it. I can't get enough of it. I'm sad I'm only in 1 league this year. I'm not. The other 2 leagues I was in last year, I wasn't in. So, but I'm over here trying to decide between like which Tennessee running back I should pick.
Both of them.
That's true. Wouldn't be bad. Anyway, I'm going to go because we're in a PPR league with Dion Lewis, who I think is going to get a lot of attention from Marcus Mariota. My pick for this week's guy who deserves some credit that won't get any credit is because his team ended up losing, but that is Washington wide receiver Aaron Fuller. Washington, and we'll talk about Auburn and Washington a lot more in just a minute, but Washington. Aaron Fuller, 6'8", effing killing for fun. Aaron Fuller was the only consistent part of a Washington offense that was incredibly inconsistent all game long. He racked in over 100 receiving yards, including several ridiculous, like over-the-top or one-handed catches. He was a beast, and it was not his fault that they lost, And I think he deserves credit for just how consistent he was and how the team could rely on him to really make that push that put them in the lead in the second half before they, of course, ended up losing. So Aaron Fuller gets my vote. All right, Auburn and Washington played, LSU and Miami played. Let's focus on the Auburn Tigers now. What do we think about the Auburn Tigers now that we have seen them in action against another top 10 program and coming out with the victory? It was a hard-fought game. There were a lot of field goals involved. Both offenses had huge question marks, but the Auburn defensive line in particular looked as good as advertised. Chandler, what were some of your thoughts about the Auburn Tigers after that game?
I feel like I still need to see more, just because the narrative on Auburn and the narrative on this game changes so much. If we get to week 5 and Auburn is 3-2, or we get to week 5 and Washington is 3-2, whatever. But I do think their defense looked great. It doesn't look like it's missed a step. Washington does not have necessarily an explosive offense, but I think they do have an offense. I mean, it's kind of one of the things that Chris Peterson has always really been known for, is a consistent offense and an offense that kind of goes out and gets things done.
Yeah. And
Auburn disrupted that all day long. And that's huge. I mean, when you look at them compared to the rest of the SEC, to me, Auburn kind of separated themselves along with LSU, as weird as that is to say, on the defensive side of the ball. And as you kind of all know, it's just an age-old adage in football that the defense is kind of typically going to be ahead of the curve than the offense. And when you can go out and know that, hey, this defense is gonna stop people from scoring, that gives Stidham and company a lot of a lot of confidence that they can go out and they can take some shots, they can do some different things. And so I think with that defense, it's going to take Auburn a long, long way, and that's going to be a hard defense for anybody to score on. And that bodes well when you're facing Mississippi State and Georgia and Auburn, and Alabama and Ole Miss. These teams with high-powered offenses and efficient offenses that they're really going to be able to wreak a lot of havoc, especially on that front seven.
Keith, did you notice anything different here, or how are you feeling about Chandler's assessment? Do you agree with him on this?
Yeah, mostly. I do think that we need to see more. As weird as it sounds to say that, I need to see more after them going out and beating another top 10 team in a quote unquote neutral site game, which wasn't really a neutral site game at all. The crowd support was definitely overwhelmingly in favor of Auburn. I think that Auburn's offense still has a lot to prove, even though they played against a good defense. I don't think that they got the running game established quite how they wanted to.
No.
And honestly, if it wasn't for two plays, Washington wins that game. There was two good defensive stands kind of towards the end of the game. One was, I think they picked up a fumble recovery, and the other one was somebody blew their coverage. A Washington wide receiver was just kind of lollygagging in the end zone by himself, and like a Auburn linebacker just got a fingertip on the ball and got it away from the guy. So, if those two plays roll the other way, Auburn loses the game, and this conversation's a whole lot different. So, and that's a lot of what college football is, though. So I don't really want to take that away from them. Football, of course, the old adage says that, football is a game of inches and body parts. I just added that last part. But
gross.
Yeah, that was a weird thing to say.
Look, man, fingertips, saving games. I think that Auburn's offense still has a lot to prove, and that's going to be really tough playing in the SEC West, where there's a lot of really, really good, really deep defenses that are going to be way better than what Washington put out against them.
Yeah, I don't know too much about Washington, but we did research it, and it seemed like the strength of Washington was their secondary, their Washington defense, their secondary much more so than their defensive line or linebackers. And Auburn, as you pointed out, did have trouble running the ball. I'm going to pull up some statistics real quick. The Auburn defense, first the good. The Auburn defense did hold Washington to slightly under 400 yards of total offense, about 398, if I remember correctly, which I looked it up, and based off of last season, that would have been about right in the middle of what the median college football offense managed. The highest teams ran a certain amount, the lowest offenses averaged a certain amount. Basically, if you went right in the middle, somewhere around the 60th to 70th ranked offenses last year averaged about 400 yards a game. So that gives you an idea of they took Washington and they held them to average offense gain, at best. In particular, that defensive line held them to 3.1 yards per carry, which
pretty
is,
good.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty good. You want your guys to average like 4 to 4.5 yards per carry to have a good game. Anything higher than that, especially when you hit that 5 mark, that's a good game if you're averaging that. Anything more is phenomenal. And so you hold them to 3.1, that shows that's good. On the other side, though, Auburn, Cam Martin, who's supposed to be their big back to take over the carrying responsibilities, only averaged 3.5 yards per carry. And then what boggled my mind the most is that they rushed Jarrett Stidham 11 times. They kept running these little read option plays where Stidham started running with the ball, And I felt bad for him because he looked like when you're playing Madden and your player loses all of his stamina and he's like struggling to maneuver down the field. That's how Stidham looked when he sprinted.
And his awareness is already like a 7.
Right. It made no sense. Everything just looked unnatural.
It looked like a Breaking Madden character.
It did. So I just felt bad for Jarrett Stidham that they did that to him. You would think moving forward, maybe they wouldn't run so many read options with Stidham. I mean, he averaged like 2 yards a carry. So yeah, I mean, I think you guys are absolutely right that Auburn still has a lot to prove. And I think a lot of that also comes down to the fact that as much as Auburn did win this game, Washington also very much lost this game. Like Washington had plenty of opportunities to hold on to the lead or to even take a better lead. I mean, there were 2 possessions in a row where they got down to the goal line, threw a touchdown pass, but there was a pick play. So they're flag and it comes back. And then they end up having to settle for a field goal, which they miss. And then the next drive, they're down at the goal line again, and the quarterback fumbles. So as much as Auburn won, Washington lost, it seems like. So there's a lot left to prove, but there was a lot of positives. And it seems like Auburn has a lot that they can build on moving forward so they don't have to worry about anything quite like that. The other Tigers that we were going to talk about, or if you even consider Auburn to be Tigers, whatever they may be. But LSU came out and played against, they were number 25 in the nation, playing against number 8 preseason. Of course, we all know my feelings on preseason polls. They are completely worthless, and I dislike them tremendously. But LSU came out here and went to work. And I got to say this before I turn it over. I feel like I was very, very wrong in underestimating the LSU defense. And this is a segment we'll do every week, which is what was Craven wrong about this time? But I was very wrong and I underestimated them. And they came out there and really looked like a top caliber defense. So I got to give props to them in that. But Chandler, what did you see out of the LSU Bayou Bengals?
If you're going to do a segment every week called What Was Craven Wrong About, I would like to do a segment that is just, I'm pretty sure, which is just me offering up as lukewarm of takes as I possibly can.
I love it. I love it. Also, I do need to point out, though, Chandler, you were the only one who predicted LSU to win that game out of it.
I told you. I said weird. It's weird, and weird favors LSU. It does. Yeah. So the good, obviously the defense. I mean, but I wasn't surprised by their defense playing lights out because I saw that game going in such a way that would have had both teams playing great defense, both teams having very average to bad quarterback play, and it being a 17-13 kind of game either way.
Yeah.
And LSU delivered on the good defense and the average quarterback play. Miami delivered on the bad quarterback play. They just didn't deliver on the great defense. Look, it's really simple with LSU. It's that defense is great, and can the offense just stay out of the way? And that's really what it comes down to. And my I'm pretty sure take of the week is that I'm pretty sure LSU has not figured out the offense because they broke one long run, which as I say this fully understanding, it's not fair to say if you take the one long run out of the game because they got the long run because they have good running backs. Yeah. But the telling stat to me was that LSU did what they did with Joe Burrow still completing fewer than 50% of his passes and for less than 200 yards.
Yeah.
And that will beat Miami, who is probably overrated. But that's not going to beat Alabama. That's not going to beat Auburn. That's not going to beat Mississippi State. That's not going to beat Georgia. And LSU expects to beat those teams.
Yeah.
So they've got some work to do, but week one was awesome for them. It was very, very good for them. And
that's exactly how they would have wanted to start that. That's like
absolutely.
If you ask them to say, okay, what's the best case scenario for a week one, and it's exactly what they said. Like the offense doesn't screw up, and the defense handles business.
And
Isn't that a weird
that defense,
world to like live in, where you say the best case scenario is the offense doesn't get in its own way and mess everything up?
Well,
welcome to Baton Rouge.
That's how good that defense is, though. Like it's and Dave Aranda unquestionably is one of the top defensive coordinators in the country, and I mean that defense is going to give everybody they play trouble. It's just Ed Orgeron's weakness as a coach has seemingly always been offense. I mean, this is a guy who, when he was the head coach at Ole Miss, and I, on the one hand, he's changed a lot since then, but on the other hand, it's part of his career, so it's still fair game, where he openly, as he was trying to recruit quarterbacks, openly told the media as much as he could that he hated quarterbacks.
Right.
Like that's a direct quote. He hated quarterbacks. And if you're a defensive line coach,
so stop
that
asking.
works. If you're a defensive line coach, that works. But and again, LSU is a team that I want to see them play more. They've got Auburn coming up in a couple of weeks. That's going to be a fascinating game because it's just like, what do you expect? I mean, that it may be a 3-0 kind of game,
right?
But that's I'm pretty sure that they have not figured out the offense thing.
Right. And that's the question I really wanted to ask you about here, Keith, going into this. They did have, they were wondering whether or not any success they've had over the past few years has been built around a good offensive line and a running back that they can count on just about every down. Maybe he rests a little bit, but between like Leonard Fournette, Darius Geis, all of that. And so they seem to have that in Nick Brissett right now, who came out and showed, okay, I can handle it. Ran for 125 yards, 2 touchdowns. Along with that, you do have Joe Burrow, who, as Chandler pointed out, only went 11 of 24 for 140 yards passing. 5 of those receptions, by the way, and 81 of those yards went to one man, Justin Jefferson. But the offense obviously didn't really make too many mistakes. So the questions here, Keith, are, is the offense, even if they don't get significantly better, is this offense going to be able to win them any games, you think? I mean, what do you think of this LSU offense right now?
Well, first of all, I just discovered that they have a wide receiver named Leonard Fournette.
Yeah, it's definitely Leonard's little brother.
Yep, Leonard's brother.
Yeah, so that's hilarious and wonderful.
Kind of like how I'm pretty sure Calvin Ridley's younger brother had almost identical name, but then started going by Riley Ridley once he got to Georgia.
and hey, Laramie Tunsil's little brother is a wide receiver for Ole Miss.
But what's his name?
Jeremy
Tunsil. His name is
Yeah.
Alex Weber. It's not even close.
You see, well, that doesn't sound interesting to me at all now.
Yeah, this was now a very boring story.
That's what I'm here for.
Just so to answer your question in short, no, LSU's offense is not going to win them any games. Joe Burrow may get a lot better as the season goes on. I really, really hope so. Or else their offense is definitely going to lose them games. Miami's defense did not look particularly strong, and LSU's offense seemed to struggle against them. Now, they didn't make any mistakes, which is going to be a very important thing going forward. Even if LSU's offense is average by every possible meaning of the word, they're going to give their team a chance to win the game because their defense is that good. But they're going to be a team that thrives off of getting turnovers and not turning over the ball, and just trying to stay on the field long enough, play positioning, field positioning, that is, hope to get a couple of scores, and then just let their defense do its work. That's what I kind of see from them, and that's honestly that's kind of been LSU's calling card during their stronger years.
Yeah.
So just be an LSU team and you'll be fine.
Yeah. I mean, this looks like it might end up being absolutely an LSU team.
It is hard to argue with that.
It is hard to argue with that. Here's the question I want to ask, and this is just kind of a yes or no question. But do you think the LSU defense is going to be able to keep that level of play up consistently throughout the season? Chandler?
I don't know what they look like depth-wise, but I am generally a believer in recruiting rankings and stars, and they got a lot of stars. So I think so.
All right, Keith.
I think so. They showed us a lot in this game. It's obviously only going to get tougher as the year goes on because of what is hanging out in the SEC West. But I think that as the year goes on, they'll get better to sort of rise to meet that competition level.
All right. I don't feel as confident they'll be able to keep that up. I don't necessarily. I started this whole bit off by apologizing to them and like giving them more credit. But this is where I want to. I'm not saying like I'm discrediting them, so that's why I bring that up. But what I'm going to be paying very close attention to them in the next couple of weeks to see. Okay, is this something that they can do on a consistent level? Because this could be that they were hyped up to go up against a Miami offense that just was not all that great. And was maybe a little overrated or whatever the case may be, and they took advantage of it. So I'm very curious to see whether or not they can. I'm not saying that I don't think they will keep it up, but I'm very curious to see.
Well, the offense is going to have to do its part.
Exactly.
They're going to have to figure that part of it out because they could play lights out defense. They could. If I'm not mistaken, I think Alabama goes to Baton Rouge this year. I think, and so they could just as easily host Alabama in Baton Rouge and lose a 10-3 kind of game where they look great on defense, but they just can't score.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and looking back on the actual game, as much as it seemed like LSU dominated in all facets of the game, they still gave up 259 yards through the air to a quarterback who was wildly inconsistent and threw 2 picks. And if you take those 2 picks away, that's kind of a weird thing to say and maybe even dumb. But one of those picks resulted in a pick 6, and the other one resulted in really good field position that led directly to points. So
it was one of those things too. As we were talking about this game, we talked about the quarterback controversy at Miami, that a lot of people thought that Rozier was not the guy, and that he was not going to be the starting quarterback all year.
Yeah,
and so I think a lot of that has to factor into it.
But when you look on the Miami rushing side, it was horrific. I mean, LSU's front 7 did a great job of like bottling up their rushing game, and it just never got going.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, we need to look ahead at the biggest matchups that are going into this week 2. There's 3 in particular across the SEC that seem to generate the most attention. We probably would have had 4 if Kansas State hadn't struggled to beat South Dakota. But if Kansas State beats Mississippi State this weekend, then we'll have a lot to talk about next week. But we don't have much to talk about right now. We've got 3 games in particular: Kentucky, Florida, Clemson A&M, and Georgia, South Carolina, that are the big matchups going into week 2. Keith, why don't you start us off?
Do we want to do lines for this, or do we want to do lines at the end when we do projections?
We will do. We can do the lines here, but we'll bring them back up later on when we do.
Okay, we'll just save them.
We'll save them.
Yeah, we'll save whatever. Okay.
Keith, talk to us a little bit about Kentucky versus Florida.
Kentucky didn't look good in their game against Central Michigan. The score maybe tells a different story than what actually happened because Central Michigan, I'm pretty sure, had like a 17-7 lead going into halftime, or at least at some point in the second quarter, and it looked like Kentucky's scheduled midseason collapse was going to happen early again this year.
Not so fast, my friend.
Double not so fast. But they managed to kind of turn it around. But their offense did not look good against a super average Central Michigan defense. Maybe even below average.
Yeah, average might be a bit of a stretch.
I was feeling
I'm
generous.
just saying, those might have been like the fifth-year seniors that Butch Jones recruited. So those are champions of life.
That's true. That is a valid point that we cannot overlook. Hey, Keith, keep talking and not mention whatever Chandler just talked about again.
Sure. But they only threw for 128 yards, split between two quarterbacks.
Gosh.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
That's horrific. Benny Snell did a really good job, obviously, because he's a man amongst children, rushing for 125 yards on 20 carries and 2 touchdowns. He had a really nice 50-plus yard gallop at one point during the game. But they played against a weak team and looked like they were going to get upset early. On the flip side, Florida played a really weak team, a much weaker team, albeit, but Florida seemed to execute at every level. And if you can look impressive against an FCS school, Florida looked impressive against an FCS school. Franks took a lot of steps. He looked comfortable for the first time in Florida blue, I think maybe ever. There were a couple of plays where I remember he felt some pressure coming from the side of the pocket, and instead of kind of freaking out and running away, he slid back into the protection and made a nice throw. And so that was really good to see from him. The rushing game didn't really go where I think they wanted it to, but they rotated a lot of guys to share a lot of the carries. All that to say, this weekend, Kentucky comes to the Swamp, and they did not show that their fans should have any confidence that this is going to be a compelling game to watch. Plus you're carrying the history of not winning against Florida in like 28 years, 30 or 32 maybe. I don't know. It's been a long, long time since they've beaten Florida. Looks like that trend's going to continue this week.
So, yeah, it seems like a pretty strong tilt towards Florida, especially Florida being at home for this matchup. Kentucky has a lot of gaps going on in offense. You would think this has a lot of things lined up to be a Florida Gators major victory. However, you just never quite know with this matchup in recent years. There have been sometimes in which it has been surprisingly close, and it looks like, maybe Kentucky can actually pull off the upset, and then they don't.
Oh yeah, last year Kentucky lost by a point after I think leading by like 14 going into the fourth quarter, or something weird
exactly.
like that.
I think the thing that you're looking for in this game is not so much is Florida going to win, because the answer is yes. But the thing you're looking for in this game is it going to be a comedy of errors as it has kind of looked like the last few years? That it's just kind of like, yeah, Florida pulls it out, but they really, really looked bad doing it, and a lot of really weird things. Last year, I remember and I can't remember if it was Florida on offense or if it was Kentucky on offense, but the other team the defense trots out there with 10 players, and so they just kind of like walk in the end zone for a touchdown. And you're looking for stuff like that to not happen if you're Florida. You want to go out, you want to play a clean game, and you want to look like even if the game's close, you want to look like you're in control.
Right.
And that's something that Florida's struggled with in this game over the last few years.
Yeah, it's to an extent, it kind of reminds me a little bit of the Vanderbilt Ole Miss game, how that always seems to be just kind of a weird game for both teams involved. Sometimes Vanderbilt deserves to have it close, or sometimes Vanderbilt even wins, but most of the time it's like Vanderbilt doesn't deserve it, but they still are for some reason, and it's just one of those things. And that kind of seems like, to me, this is the equivalent of that over in
those games have taken 15 years off my life. So
that and your chain smoking.
Yeah. Notorious chain smoker here.
Trying to get you to quit, man. Trying to get you to quit. Hey, Chandler, why don't you talk to us just a little bit about Clemson and Texas A&M? What do you think of that matchup, especially in light of the way A&M started off the season?
I think like 35 of Clemson's players are first round projections. So
they're going to have more first round draft picks than teams in the NFL. It's very impressive.
It's going to be insane. It's going to be a crazy year in the draft for Clemson. I think that Clemson is the most talented team in the country, top to bottom, especially on defense. And I think it's just going to be too much for A&M. I think A&M is more talented than they've looked the last few years, but I don't think they're this talented. And I don't think that Kellen Mond is the kind of quarterback that's going to go out and make plays against that Clemson defense. Right. And I think even if A&M is an improved team this year, which they may very well be, they're not in a class with Clemson and Alabama yet. And so I don't think there's a lot to talk about here. I mean, the only thing I'm really interested to see is what's kind of the breakdown quarterback wise for Clemson with Kelly Bryant and Trevor Lawrence, because I think Trevor Lawrence is the guy. It's just that they're not going to bench a junior or senior, whatever your Bryant is, for a true freshman just because they think he's the guy. I think they got to let Bryant screw up a little bit. So if there's a lot to talk about in this game when it's over, it's because something went horribly, horribly wrong for Clemson. But I think with Jimbo's obviously got some familiarity with Clemson. Yeah. He's played against them for the last several years. He's kind of been, front and center for Clemson's resurgence over these last 5 or 6 years. And so, he'll have them ready. They'll be ready to play. But I think that the talent is just too much to deal with.
Most likely. You would think that's the way it's going to pan out here. But, Keith, what do you think would be obviously an actual victory would be a victory for Texas A&M. But let's just say, playing the odds here, they don't win. What's going to be a victory for Texas A&M in this sort of thing? What do they need to do in order to go out there and prove, okay, like, not only did we get the right coach, but also we're not that bad off right now, and we're going to be okay moving forward, and we're proving that we're on the verge of competing with the big boys, which is the statement they want to make this season.
Yeah, outside of the obvious answer of keeping it close, I think that if A&M's offensive line can do a better job this week of recognizing stunts and picking up like the right assignments. They had a really tough time doing that last week against a pretty bad team. So if they want to show that they can play consistently in the SEC West with really good front sevens, they're going to have to prove against Clemson, who also has a really good front seven, that they can handle that pressure long enough to not get their quarterback murdered every third or fourth play.
Yeah.
And then on defense, kind of the same thing. They just have to stay in front of the chains, as you hear it said. They have to limit big plays. They have to keep Clemson's offense from dictating the actual tempo of the game. Even if they lose, if they can prove that their offensive line can handle complex stunts and then on defense prove that they can consistently keep teams to small plays, then I think the A&M fans have a lot to be excited about going forward.
I think you're absolutely right.
And Clemson did go to Syracuse last year and lose. They are not beyond Clemsoning as it so affectionately got to be known. They're not beyond that yet. So I mean, it could definitely be interesting. But yeah, I think Keith is right.
All right. Well, the last one in the big three is the matchup between the two teams. Two SEC East teams in Georgia and South Carolina. Looking at the two of them, and I just want to point out that while I was doing research, I missed one of my draft picks and ended up getting some tight end I didn't care much about. But
I did the same thing.
I'm going to be honest. Yeah. I set mine to auto draft like an hour ago. So
yeah, and I mean it shows. But looking at their performances, of course, Georgia went up against the Governors of Austin Peay and blanked them 45-0. No real surprises in the two teams in terms of winning the matchups that they're supposed to. We saw what we thought we would see out of someone like Jake Fromm, 12-16 passing, 157 and 2 touchdowns. So just kind of good, efficient passing right there. Justin Fields came in, went 7 of 8 for 63 yards and 1 touchdown. Justin Fields, of course, also ran for 33 yards and 3 carries, averaging 11. But Georgia did have Demetrius Robertson average 72 yards per carry.
Yeah.
He only ran the ball one time for 72 yards. That's the joke there. But
yeah,
on the flip side,
it was an impressive run.
Yes, it was very impressive. On the flip side of that, South Carolina came out against the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. These two teams going up against the two best opponents' nicknames, I think, in the SEC.
That's a safe bet.
Yeah, the two best ones that SEC teams went up against. 49-15 was that final score. One that really wasn't even – Coastal Carolina didn't even have that many points, for most of the game. They got 9 in the fourth quarter to bring it to 15. But beyond that, they just got a couple field goals. Jake Bentley for South Carolina went 22 of 29 for 250 yards and 4 touchdowns. Rico Dowdle rushed for 105 rushing yards. Tyson Williams, 82 rushing yards. Slade Carroll, 46 rushing yards. A.J. Turner, 24. Along with that, they saw the return of Deebo Samuel, who caught 7 passes for 56 yards and a touchdown. But he didn't even have the most yardage. They also had Shee Smith, 61. It just was a spread out. That's the point I'm making here. Spread out offensive attack from South Carolina. With Georgia, we kind of saw what we thought we would see in that Fromm will make the passes he needs to make, and he'll spread the ball out to these wide receivers to make plays. But South Carolina came out and also did a very similar thing, along with having a very, very powerful rushing attack. Granted, neither of these two teams really went up against difficult opponents. The opposition was not that impressive, but it does point us to thinking that perhaps these two offenses will really try to dictate the tempo and be the main storyline amongst two programs in which we kind of expect the defenses to run things. Chandler, what do you think we will see in this Georgia-South Carolina matchup?
I thought before the year, or in other words, like last week, that I thought that I just had a feeling going in that I think South Carolina is going to win this game. I think South Carolina being at home, they've got a lot of experience. They've got a lot of talent, and I think that this is a game. Well, I thought going into the year that this was a game that Georgia was going to stumble in, and the closer we get, the more I kind of want to hedge that bet. But I'm going to stick with it. There's just something about this game being this early. That I just think you got an experienced quarterback like Jake Bentley. You've got a big play guy like Deebo Samuel, and it appears they've got actually a couple of other pieces this year that didn't step up last year or hadn't stepped up early last year. That I think South Carolina's going to defend home turf on this one.
All right, look at that. Keith, what are you thinking here?
I was firmly on the fence on this game, but I'm starting to lean a little bit towards Georgia because of their secret weapon, Demetrius Robertson, who rushed for a staggering average of 72 yards per carry. And I think he's going to keep it up. I think he's going to rush for 2,000 yards. They're going to have to rush him to a hospital directly after the game. No, but in all seriousness, I think that Kirby Smart's going to have to hand the game over more and more to Jake Fromm in order for their offense to be a little more potent. I was really surprised that he only threw 16 times, 157 yards and 2 touchdowns. So it wasn't a terrible day.
No.
I think that they were aiming towards getting their run game going. And
they probably also just wanted to get Fields out there and just get him some playing time in the games that they know he'll be able to get in,
Yeah, for sure. But I think that Georgia's offense is still going to have to establish a little bit of an identity after losing the guys in the backfield that they did last year. And as odd as it sounds, having just said that, I think that that's going to have to come in, like what I said, Jake Fromm being a little more assertive on offense.
Man, just like the Hoko Bears all over again, man.
Yes, I don't know what that reference is. But
you're the only person that haven't watched QB1.
The only person in the world.
It's true.
Only person in the world.
I'm not going to. So, but yeah, so that's my take. I think South Carolina is going to be really up for this game. If they can avoid looking like Florida State after the kickoff and look more like Florida State before the kickoff, they'll be doing really good.
Man, Florida State was so hyped. Just so freaking hyped. All right.
I was hyped for them.
I know, right? After it. It's like I don't even care for this team, but they were getting after it.
Had them all black kits on. Ooh.
So clean.
And they pooped the bed.
Hey, can we talk about jerseys? Who looked good on Saturday?
Yeah, real quick. You got someone in mind? Go for it.
Don't do it.
I'm gonna give my homer answer. I'm gonna give my homer answer real quick, but I'm also gonna give you an answer that's gonna surprise you. Okay. I thought Ole Miss's all whites looked great. But as much fun as I made of him and his performance and their team, I thought Michigan looked great. I don't know if they were debuting the Jordan this year or not. Mm-hmm. Maybe they've had it for a few years or not. But man, there was just something about it. It was this like combination of a cool, their cool classic look, but also like kind of updated a little bit. And yeah, I thought Michigan looked awesome.
Word, thank you. We're going to sit down at some point when we find the time and record an entire episode just about jerseys. It's going to be called Jersey Boys. Be a little series we do talking about uniforms that we enjoy and what it is that we like about them.
And boys is going to be spelled with several Z's.
Yes. I mean, I'm thinking at least 4.5.
Yeah.
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 Most of the Z's.
Yeah, most of them.
Most of them. What does that even mean? All right, it's time to make some predictions. Whew. All right. I'm going to review
prediction time.
Prediction time. I'm going to review what we did last week very quickly. But spoiler alert, everyone was largely in the same region. Chandler was the one who actually almost up until, I guess, well, I'm trying to figure out how that is. I guess everyone ended up with like 13 correct picks, except for me. I am notoriously bad at predicting things. I only got 12 of them right, but I'm just notoriously bad, always have been. So there you go. But, of course, last week, Vanderbilt beat Middle Tennessee. Texas A&M beat Northwestern State. West Virginia got Tennessee. South Carolina beat Coastal Carolina. Missouri beat UT Martin. Ole Miss beat Texas Tech. LSU beat Miami. Kentucky beat Central Michigan. Georgia, Austin Peay. Florida got Charleston Southern. Auburn beat Washington. Arkansas defeated Eastern Illinois. Alabama beat Louisville. And Mississippi State beat Stephen F. Austin. We also predicted, of course, the Noles, as we always do. And the Noles did.
Boy, were we wrong.
Hey, real quick before we get on to predicting the Noles for this week or predicting anyone, but how bad did they look? Can we just reemphasize that again? How they look they outgained Virginia Tech and lost.
I mean, I was shocked. I mean, just nothing about that made sense. And man, major props to Virginia Tech for just going in there and not being intimidated at all.
No.
I mean, I'm a big fan of like if a team has a hand sign or a chant or something, I'm a big fan of the opposing team beating them and then doing that hand sign like in the stadium. And so watching the Virginia Tech players like doing the tomahawk chop on the sideline, I mean, that was like, I want that injected into my veins like right now.
Yeah, no, I think Chandler called it like first half maybe, was like, man, it would be funny if this happened. And then basically everybody from Florida State had left and the Tech fans could just do whatever they wanted and nobody could stop them.
Nobody. Oh, it was incredible. Okay, let's run down the list to make some predictions here. I do have a few predictions and statements that have been sent to me by Roe Hunter, who had something pop up that prevented him from joining. But some of the bigger matchups, some of the bigger matchups he does have a comment for. Let's run through it. Keith, do you have the spreads in front of you? Where you can?
I got them right here.
Very nice.
On a platter.
Let's start off with Arkansas State versus Alabama. What's the spread?
I'm surprised that there's a spread on here, and it's really it's closer than the experts might have predicted. And that Alabama is a 36.5 point favorite.
Nice. All right, Chandler.
I'm not even sure why that's a thing.
This is a game that I think if there was a way for Saban just to keep it close, just so he could have something to yell at his team about, he would. But I don't think I mean they're gonna cover 36.5. I mean they're gonna beat them really bad.
Yeah, let's be honest here. And I think we're all in agreement that say what you want about the way he treated Maria Taylor, but Saban's a douche.
Yep.
Yeah. No. Jalen Hurts is going to say, hey, coach, when can I play? Saban's going to look at him and say, I don't know. So stop asking.
Me. Why you always got to ask me about this?
His grandchild is going to come up to him after the game and be like, Granddaddy, do you love me? And he's going to be like, I don't know. Stop asking.
I hope this meme continues forever.
May it never, ever end. All right. Chandler's got Bama. I've got Bama. Keith?
Roll top all.
Hey, Keith, what's the spread looking like in Arkansas at Colorado State?
Arkansas at Colorado State in Fort Collins, Colorado, just a short distance from Denver.
Scenic Fort Collins.
Yes, scenic Fort Collins. Arkansas is a 13-point favorite.
Wow. Does this surprise you?
Who would have thought this? Who would have thought that Arkansas could be 2-0 and in their second game they're a favorite by almost 2 touchdowns
on the road?
Yeah,
on the road in scenic Fort Collins.
Look, not just anybody goes into Fort Collins and comes out with a win. Okay, but actually,
one of the hardest places to play at.
That's not true. I watched Colorado State's first game against Hawaii, which I don't know if you heard. Hawaii brought back the run and shoot. But
thanks, Aaron Taylor.
They looked really bad. So I think that Arkansas wins, and Arkansas wins. I think they cover 13.
All right, Keith, what do you think?
I think Colorado State's going to have a bounce back game, but they're still going to lose, but by like 10.
Oh man, I'll be honest with you. Part of me wants to get fully behind KJ Carter-Samuels, the Colorado State quarterback. What did you sing?
You know what I'm saying.
I don't. Part of me wants to really get behind him in this matchup. I just don't see it happening, but I think that this could be another powerful performance from KJ Carter-Samuels in a Arkansas victory. So, Arkansas. Keith, how about Alabama State and Auburn?
There is no spread, unfortunately.
Didn't think so. Anyone got anything to say?
In beautiful Jordan-Hare.
Nerdenhar Stadium in the prettiest village on the plains.
Yeah, Auburn's going to win.
Mm-hmm.
They're just going to win. It just means more.
Yeah, it means so much to them.
It just means more points than the other guys.
Yeah,
I'm going to spell. I went to an Auburn game years ago, and one of the people I was with, who was an Auburn student, was singing along with a little fight song, and it ends with them spelling out the word Auburn.
AUBURN.
And the friend definitely said ABUBRN.
A Burburn.
A Burburn. So since then, I have spelled it as a Booburn, and I'm not going to spell it any differently in this spreadsheet that I typed this all out to keep track of our picks. All of us are picking a Booburn to win this game. All right, Southeastern Louisiana goes up against in-state rival Louisiana State.
Also no spread.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Chandler, what do you think?
Someone's slipping.
I think that the Tigers of Louisiana State will win that American football competition.
You know what Southeast Louisiana's mascot is right off the top of your head?
The Lions.
Thank you. Well done. I accidentally ended up on their campus one time while trying to find a place. I was driving through Louisiana, and I was just like, there's some road sign said there was a place to eat nearby. And I went, okay, good. And I went looking for it. Or like I plugged into GPS. Next thing I know, I was accidentally on their campus at like 10 o'clock at night when no school was in session. And I was like, what's happening to me? Am I going to die?
You're going to get eaten by a lion.
Going to get eaten by a lion.
Yeah. No. You were brought there to be eaten.
That's it.
By a lion.
LSU.
Yeah, I'm also going to go LSU on this one. I'm going to go against my heart. And
These are fun games. These are fun games to pick.
I know, seriously.
Leonard Fournette's going to rush for 250 yards while catching only 3 passes for -5 yards.
Wow.
Bold, unfounded prediction coming in hot.
That's it. That's the one. Hey, Chandler, how about Southern Illinois and Ole Miss?
Yeah, I think Ole Miss is going to win. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
Keith,
they have good players, and Southern Illinois doesn't.
Yeah, Keith, was there even a line on this one?
There wasn't.
Nope.
Okay, didn't think so.
I feel useless.
Any arguments here between Ole Miss across the board?
Roddy Toddy.
Righty-tighty and lefty-loosey. That's the Ole Miss cheer, I guess, now.
Yes,
Keith, how about
yeah, that's my favorite cheer.
Wyoming and Missouri. Let's try to get back into some actual like Division I opponents or something.
Wyoming, and Mizzou. There probably shouldn't be a line on this. Mizzou is a 17-point favorite.
I mean, they're both FBS teams, so.
Yep. So they're going to have a line on it. So
Yeah, but no one cares.
Chandler.
Missouri covers.
All right. Keith, what do you think?
Mizzou.
I'm going to go Mizzou on this one as well, but I do think that Wyoming is a sneaky good team this year. I don't think that they're going to win this game, but I do think that they're a sneaky good team this year.
Coming out of week 3.
I overlooked this one. We should have done it earlier, but East Tennessee State and Tennessee.
No line.
I'm just saying, baby, the Vols are back. They're going to go out there. They're going to line up in that locker room. They're going to run through that power tee, and that band's going to play Rocky Top, and everybody's going to be happy because the Vols are back, baby.
I'm just
Vol for life. VFL hashtag.
Most excited that you just said, I'm just going to say, baby. That's how you started it off. I'm just going to say, baby. So anyway, who you got in this one, Chandler?
Oh, Rocky Top. It's always going to be home sweet home to me. Good old Rocky Top, man. Rocky Top, Tennessee. Let's go Vols.
Keith?
Were you just doing Will Ferrell's impression of George W. Bush just then?
I'm a Tennessee fan, man. What you talking about?
I think Tennessee's quarterback, Jarrett Guantanamo, is going to come out and throw for 400 yards and 16 touchdowns. Be Heisman favorite after this week.
It just makes sense.
Man, but after this week, old Guantanamo Bay is going to get shut down. Paul.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Tennessee on this one just kind of because there's no other option. It's the weirdest thing. I keep trying to type East Tennessee State on my keyboard in the spreadsheet, and it won't come up. So strange.
What happens when Tennessee plays a bunch of blankets?
Nevada and Vanderbilt. Or, for some of you, Nevada.
Nevada, potato.
Let's call the whole thing off.
Vanderbilt's actually
Nevada,
8.5-point favorite.
If you say Nevada, then you're a terrorist, so please turn yourself in.
Okay. Did you say Vandy's an 8.5 point?
Yep.
Did I just say okay that quickly to a terrorist joke?
I probably deserved it.
I mean, it was
just said okay.
It was such a reasonable expectation that you just went on with it right away.
Sounded like the right thing to do, you know? If I would have turned my cell phone off and turned myself in. Is that what you said?
Also, it just says VAN is an 8.5-point favorite, so I instantly thought it was Vancouver for some reason.
That's because you're the only person in America that watches
Whatever.
hockey.
That's true.
The only one.
I always liked when Carolina and Seattle were playing in like the playoffs in the NFL at one point last year, and somebody posted a meme that just said "car versus sea," the abbreviations, and it just showed a car driving into the ocean, and it says "sea wins."
As it tends to do.
Yep. All right, Nevada and Vanderbilt. Chandler, what do you think?
This one's weird because Vanderbilt actually looked good against Middle Tennessee State. Like, I watched it because I thought it was going to be more interesting than the Alabama game, and it wasn't. I think Vanderbilt probably covers that 9.
All right, look at that. Keith, what do you think?
Well, it's 8.5, Chandler, but yes.
Well, my app says 9.
Your app's wrong.
They're going to need the 9 to cover it.
Yeah, it's true. Vandy.
All right. I, just for kicks and giggles, am going to go with Nevada because I don't ever feel comfortable picking Vandy.
Nevada.
The fighting Colin Kaepernicks.
Yep, that's them. I'm going to take a knee on Saturday and cheer for Nevada. Is that what you do? Isn't that a Nevada tradition?
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah, but now you cut up all of your Nike shorts.
Burn them.
That'll show them.
Here we go. The final games that are worth predicting, or maybe the only games that were ever worth predicting. And these are the ones that actually have some comments from Roe Hunter to discuss here. The first one we're going to start with Mississippi State having to travel to the bustling metropolis of Manhattan, Kansas. Keith, what's the line on this one?
State is a 9.5-point favorite.
All right. I'm going to start with Roe Hunter's comment and then pass it over to Chandler. Roe says, State beats K-State by 30, roll Tide Paul. Chandler, take it away.
I'm shocked this is only a 9-point game. I think.
Well, State's having to travel all the way to Manhattan.
Yeah, have you ever been there? It's boring. There's not a whole lot to do. Like they're just gonna get there. It's a friend of mine who is a Mississippi State fan described it as the Starkville of Kansas. So
and Kansas is basically the Starkville of America. So
right. So there's not a whole lot going on there. So the team gets there. It's just like, well, I guess we're gonna play football.
It just feels like home.
Can we call this episode live from the Starkville of America?
Yes. Done.
I mean, look, Kansas State is weird because you think like they shouldn't be good, and you see them and they struggle with the team, but then the next week Bill Snyder's like, "Hey, I'm 80,000 years old, and I somehow managed to get these kids to play hard." I think State's going to win. I think State's probably going to win pretty easily. I think they cover the 9, but it's weird.
Yeah, Bill Snyder is. There's few coaches I respect as much as Bill Snyder because the man built something out of nothing.
There
And
are
then,
also a few coaches that are as old as Bill Snyder.
Yeah, exactly. So just de facto kind of have to respect him.
Dark Lord of the Sith, Bill Snyder.
Yeah.
Congrats, dude. You hadn't died.
Right. So he built something out of nothing and then just kind of like, I don't know. I'm a fan of the man.
Yeah.
For sure. He deserves some respect. Keith, what do you think though?
Bill Snyder built that city on rock and roll.
Yes, he did.
I don't think rock and roll was a thing when he started.
It was just a twinkle in his mother's eye.
Rockin' the Bach, Bill Snyder.
I think State's going to win, but I think that this has the potential to be kind of a really weird, almost trap game, for no other reason than the fact that Kadeon Thompson came in, played a just a crazy game on Saturday for their opener, and now we have Nick Fitzgerald coming back in. Doesn't really get that warm up game, has to come back in, show that he can, get and play with that offense well straight out of the gate, and avoid a potentially really embarrassing update. Or I just forgot the word to whatever I was about to say.
I think upset was the word you were looking for. But update in a weird way.
I'm in total tech mode right now. I don't know what's happening. But yeah, so I think
Keith
State
is actually
wins.
A robot.
Yeah, we've always known
error. Yeah, I think State wins, but I don't know if they cover that.
It's closer than the experts think.
Triple, not so fast.
It's one of those that if you'd asked me before the season started, I would have thought that this could very, very, very easily be a Kansas State victory. And then last week happens, and it's just like, well, I mean, surely it's a Mississippi State victory because Kansas State was struggling to beat South Dakota. Not even South Dakota State, FCS powerhouse, but just South Dakota. So it just is weird. And I think it's going to be a weird one. And I think it's going to be very difficult on the road against a Power 5 opponent. I do think Mississippi State ekes out a small victory and uses this as a chance to maybe fine-tune things moving forward. Do think it's a Bulldog victory, but I don't think it's that significant that huge of a victory. I think it'd be a significant victory because if you go on the road against a Power 5 opponent at any point in time, that's pretty significant.
Unless it's actual Kansas.
Right. I don't even think that they're considered Power 5. Like, they're in the conference, but they're not even considered a Power 5 opponent, just, because. True. Just because.
It just means less.
How is Kansas not on everybody's schedule? Like, they would make so much money to just be like, hey, we'll play you. It'd be like $5 million extra a year.
Well, because then they'd play like 130 games.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. They'll be playing nonstop every day of the year.
I'd be calling their athletic director every day begging, like, hey, let's make a 10-year contract.
All right. Hey, Keith, what's the Kentucky and Florida line at? The Kentucky-Florida line, the hit new awesome country band that we're all starting.
Brand new, country rap fusion band. Florida's a 14-point favorite at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium.
Chandler, what'd you think? Actually, no, I got to start with Rose's comment. I'm sorry. Rose said, and I quote, UK gives a Danny two-step all them Gators can handle, but I still think they beat UK. So Roe goes with the Gators. Chandler?
What'd you say the spread on it was? My iPad decided to not let me hear it.
14.
Oh, Florida covers. I don't think Kentucky's very good.
Going with the Gators.
I'm going to go with the Gators also, but I just want to go on record. As I did last week, I went on record and said that I was very confident in Kentucky to win the first game because it's Kentucky at the beginning of the season. Why wouldn't I be? So right now, I'm very uncomfortable picking Florida because, it's Kentucky at the beginning of the season. I'm just kidding. Florida hasn't lost that game in our lifetimes. Anyway,
I'm just saying Dan Mullins is going to have those Florida Gators ready to go.
Oh, Dan Mullins. Danny Two-Step.
Dan the man.
Danny Two-Step.
Horse voice Dan.
The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Oh, gosh.
Keith, Georgia and South Carolina.
Georgia and South Carolina. UGA, 10-point favorite in Columbia.
All right, Rose comment on this one is the University of Georgia defeats the South Carolina Chanticleers by like 30 points. Chandler, what you got?
Oh, man. Oh, gosh.
Roe broke the podcast. He wasn't even here.
He's not even here. He's not even here. South Carolina, South Carolina has got they've got the support of one nature boy, Ric Flair. And I mean, I know AJ Styles is a big Georgia Dog fan, and AJ Styles is the greatest wrestler alive right now. But I mean, come on, Ric Flair's all time. Give me South Carolina.
I love it. I love anytime any of you can ever base a pick off of something outside of football, please do. I just want to recommend that. All right, Keith.
Although Bill Goldberg was a Georgia Bulldog, so
yes, he was.
Still going South Carolina.
Yeah, just out there spearing everybody.
Mm-hmm. He could only do 2 moves.
And being an actually not good wrestler.
Mm-hmm. He still could only do 2 moves when he came back.
I'm going to go Georgia to win, but I think South Carolina covers. I think that's going to be an incredibly close game. I would not be surprised in the least if South Carolina wins, but I'm going UGA.
Same
I'm only
here.
giving it like 1 confidence point in my pick 'em, but I'm still picking them.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. I'm really only picking Georgia because I picked Georgia to win the East. But I picked South Carolina to finish second in the East. So this one could go either way. Maybe South Carolina wins and Georgia wins out and South Carolina loses something down the line. But I'm picking Georgia in this one just because
That's what I think is going to happen, Paul.
Paul? All right. Clemson and Texas A&M. Is this one actually in College Station? I didn't realize
it is.
That's
it's
crazy.
In College Station.
It's a home game for them Aggie Mans.
Them Aggos.
Clemson, 11.5-point favorite.
Chandler, what you got?
Give me Clemson, but it's closer than the experts think.
Keith, what about you?
I think Clemson wins, but I do think it's going to be close.
But is it closer than the experts think?
I mean, maybe.
I think it's exactly what the experts think.
They're going to win by 11.5.
Yeah, I think they're going to win by 11.5 points. There's nothing we can do about it.
Well, they are experts.
I didn't read Roe's comment because Roe only said this about it. Clemson beats Aggies by 2 touchdowns, just a better team. So there we go. Picking Clemson in this one.
That's a disappointing take from Roe.
I know. Well, here's the thing. Roe sent all of these. He sent State beats K-State by 30. UK gives Danny Two-Step. All them Gators can handle. UGA beats the Chanticleers. And Clemson beats Aggies by 2 touchdowns, just a better team. And then he follows that with, he sends 4 predictions and then follows it up by saying, oh, and Missouri by 80. And that was it. Doesn't predict any of the other games that are going up.
Good for him.
Just Missouri and Wyoming.
Missouri will win by 80. I love it. Anyway, going Clemson here. We got to pick 2 more things. Got to pick the Noles. Talking about the Noles again. Sanford goes to Doak Walker Running Back Award Stadium to face the Noles. Keith, what's the line?
I don't know.
Okay, that's fine. Chandler, who you got?
I think Florida State's going to pull this one out.
Keith?
It'll be close. It won't be close.
No.
It's going to be the choke at Doak Part 2. In that they're going to win, but by less than what everybody thinks.
Closer than the experts. I'm also going to go FSU, but I want to give a shout out to all the Samford alums that I know, because for some reason I know a significant amount of Samford alums. And my cousin David King is currently at Samford.
It's weird. I know a lot of them too.
What's up with that?
Including
Samford, you know? What's up with Samford?
Tony Hale is a Samford grad.
Huh.
There's actually not a line on this game.
Okay.
I don't think Samford's Division 1.
No, they're not.
But also, just give the ball to Cam Akers 80% of the time. In fact, don't let Francois touch it. Just
ever again.
Yeah, Francois not good.
No, he definitely was not good.
He looked really bad.
Yeah, it was not great. It was not great. Yeah, FSU in this one is who I'm picking. All right, and finally, we always pick one rando matchup to go for, and I'm going to go with one team that faced an SEC opponent last season and another team that didn't exist until recently, had to come back from the brink, or not even the brink, just had to come back. But got to go with UAB at the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. Here we go, gentlemen. Is there a line on this one, Keith?
Trying to find it, because none of those teams exists on any format, in any way, shape, form, or fashion.
I just want everyone to know, by the way, while you look that up, I just went ahead in the last round in the fantasy football draft and selected. It must have been next to last, and selected number 1 overall pick Baker Mayfield.
UAB is favored by 10.
Yeah, the Chanticleers are the 10-point dogs.
All right, Chandler, pick it.
Man, you know what? Bill Clark and the Blazers, they're back. They're favored by 10. It's going to be more. It's going to be double that. It may be triple that.
Yeah.
Right. Because Birmingham is rallying behind its home team. Yeah. They love the Blazers. They support the Blazers. They are all about the Blazers. And, they're going to feel the love from their city. They're going to feel love from their university system. Who definitely did not try to shut them down because it diverted money from the other Alabama university.
No, you're right.
It's just going to be. I mean, they're going to represent the state of Alabama on Saturday. Now, all eyes are going to be on Birmingham as the Blazers win by maybe 60 points.
I love it. Keith, tell me something even grander than what he just did.
Who wins in a fight? A dragon breathing fire or a bird?
Is this a hypothetical, or do you want me to actually answer? Because, I
need answers.
Okay.
Hey, and you know what else? That dragon breathes fire on that chicken. What does it make? Hot chicken. Guess what? There are 2 hot chicken restaurants right near the stadium.
It's almost like this was all meant to be.
Yeah, wow.
Look,
I had no idea.
UAB comes back from the void and beats Savannah State 52-0 in their opening weekend. They keep it going. By the exact same score.
I love it. So you're going with UAB as well. I do want to point out that a Chanticleer is actually a name for a rooster, most often used in fantasy situations. So
fantasy bird.
It might have magic powers.
Yeah,
it's still a chicken.
Yeah, if it's a magic chicken, it's a magic chicken. But it still ain't beating them Blazers. This will be the second week in a row that I pick a green and gold Blazer team. Hoping it pays out a lot better for me this time around. Going with UAB. And that right there means that the clock has run out on this episode of Running Up.
Thank the Lord.
Where you are finally done listening to us ramble. Congratulations.
About fantasy chickens.
Let's live from Fantasy Chickenville.
No, it's live in the Starkville of America.
Want to give a quick shout out before we go to someone that deserves recognition, that is getting a lot of recognition, but I just want to point it out anyway. How baller was that Cody Thompson Toledo Rockets blocked punt for a touchdown?
That was insane.
Just silly.
Was it a blocked punt or did he hand it off with his foot?
He just took it.
It was a fumble off of his foot. It was really what it was.
It was very graceful.
I love it. I love it so much. Thank you guys for listening, and thank you, Keith and Chandler. Shout out to Roe, couldn't make it. I'm Joseph Craven, and this has been Running Out the Clock. Keith, sign us out with something really, really good. Thank you, Keith. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.